Well, it's going to be impossible for me not to jump around because you guys keep bringing up all this stuff. I'm like, I have a question on, and you talked about the faceless character. And that is one thing that as I'm watching the series thinking, this is going to be extra tough. So Dana, when you're used to doing, one of Jason's projects or any film that's a sort of very personal kind of thing, so much of your work is informed by the way a look an actor gives off or a reaction that they're giving. And here you don't have that to motivate your cutting. How much more challenging does that make that? Or are there certain cues you look for in terms of their physical gestures, or just how different is it to be cutting without that?
Without facial reactions, for Mando, it's all about his tiny little head move or
the subtlest movement.
Just a little gesture of some sort. It's all about that. And the beauty, you could pull from anywhere in the take. But it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly, it's just like a reaction shot.
But what's really great about it too is that you're almost kind of redirecting the scene because, say for instance, the actor didn't give us that perfect look. You can steal it from, like you said, anywhere. And all of a sudden it means so much more because of a tilt and a turn as opposed to just, you know what I mean?
Or just like a body movement of something. It doesn't necessarily even have to be the head. But one thing that I wanted to say about the volume, in terms of actual actors, not a headless person or, not Mando, but, other actors who you actually see their face when they're on the volume, I find it so much better for their performances instead of being on a blue screen because they feel like they're in the environment. They feel like they are where they're supposed to be because of the surroundings. The video wall just put them in the place. So I find their performances are a little bit more natural a lot of times because they don't have to imagine where they are.
So Dylan, with talking about manipulating performances, I know in your collective bag of tricks, all of you have things like speed ramps and split screens and fluid morphs and things like that. Do those still apply in this model, or is it now just sort of, well, I'm going to call down to the engine room and have them re-render a shot a different way?
Well, as far as the, in pre-viz times, yeah, we can definitely have them re-render something if you really need it. But most of the time, we're trying to help them because they're trying to move forward on the next episode or trying to get through another sequence. So the more we can do inside the Avid, the better, as far as all that goes. One quick thing back to Mando and having the faceless, performer. It's one thing. It's great. There's two things. It's great. First off, we can always change what he's saying, and if there's something and if something comes up in story, how it is, it's you have to ADR, and normally all these tricks, you're putting it over their shoulder, you're doing all this stuff. We don't have to do that. But in addition, I think what's interesting is how much people have and this is also credit to Pedro, but what people put on that face, on that helmet, as viewers, when we cut to a reaction of him, even if he's just standing there, people can kind of put in whatever they want to put in. You're like, oh, the baby's doing this. Oh, okay, then. You know what I'm saying? They as an audience member,
they could use their imagination to fill in the blank.
Exactly.
Were you all working together at the same time? What were you using? Were you connected together? What was just sort of the nuts and bolts post-production setup for The Mandalorian?
It's pretty much a standard cutting room when there's multiple editors and assistants. We were all connected to a Nexus. We're all, pretty much on a shared project, and we can, if we wanted to, look in each other's bins and grab shared material. We grab from the same sound effects library, same music library, same, for all the temp stuff. And so in that way, pretty standard from what I'm used to.
We were grumbling and grousing about it for a little while too. It was kind of like, like these projects are getting a little bit too big and stuff like this, but it became essential because like we were talking about, like I remember I was cutting.
I'll tell you what I was grumbling and grousing about when you're done. It wasn't that, but I'll tell you.
Well,
I'm happy to tell you.
I'll say that it actually became essential because there was I was cutting the flying scenes in 106, and they never got an insert of the control panel and his arms on the hands. And I'm like, hey, Andrew, I sent him an instant message. I was like, hey, man, do you have any inserts of the control panel as hands on the thing? He said, yeah, look in this bin. So I opened up his bin, grabbed it, cut it in, boom. I took from his episode, which was directed by Dave Filoni, and put it in mine, which was directed by Rick Famuyiwa.
Jeff, just to correct you on that, you were the first person on the show, and you have
And
come
the
from a very
best
extensive
organization.
Yes. The best, it wasn't, no, your organization may have, actually, you had very interesting ways of organizing now that I remember.
It was very
good. You came from a television, no, you came from a television background where you set up project differently than we do on a shared feature.
Yeah.
Where you guys had done every episode was its own unique project and everything like that. And I came in and I said, this isn't going to work. I didn't think it was going to work. And Dylan and I conspired behind your back to
and the VFX editors actually. It was really critical for them having to jump around.
We needed to be on a single project. I never groused about it being too big, because the beautiful thing about Avid is it handles the biggest projects ever. I've worked with other platforms that I'm not going to mention that are impossible to do more than like a half an hour or something without having to create a new project, or they just get so slow to save or anything like that. Avid is terrific. Avid is, I can't say enough good things about the Avid in terms of how it handles this type of work.
Well, I have to say, I inherited the project, so I had no say in the matter, but I was pleasantly surprised when I joined the group that how it was organized. And at that point, it was all episodes were in a shared project, which was quite nice.
Well, one thing about this stealing footage, throughout the series, there are the character of the Mandalorian is revealed, at least his childhood, through flashbacks, ultimately playing out in its entirety in the finale, which is Jeff's episode. So anytime you have something like that, where there's a scene that's popping up in each episode or in most of the episodes, you wonder, well, did the person that had the full gamut of it in the finale, was that person responsible for cutting it? And were you guys all like, hey, Jeff, let's get going on that flashback thing. I need pieces of it for my episode. Or did you all just sort of edit it in different ways in your own episodes?
To be fair, I ended up getting all the flashback episodes.
Right. There was one episode.
Yeah, I cut 1, 3, 6, and 8, and 1 and 3. And you know what? Episode 1 didn't even have the flashback in it.
It was episode 2.
It was, yeah, it used to be an
child, and I was cutting it with Rick, and then Jeff, John at one point said, you know what, it's not fitting in this story. Let's put it in 1, and that's when you basically got the whole thing.
Actually, I think I pitched it to Dave Filoni. I said, if we're going to see this flashback every time he's at the armorer, like, why don't we set it up in episode 1? Why don't we start it in episode 1? And this was after they had nixed it from 2, because they shot 1 flashback. Taika directed the flashback to be this thing, and then we chose the pieces and bits that were going to go into it. And I established it first in 103, and then Andrew was working on his version in 102, and then that got nixed. And I was like, whoa. Andrew did some good work here. Let's redo it better and put it in 1. no, but it just...
No, you did a terrific job with it, and you did. I mean, you basically, didn't you really start with episode 8 and then whittle it? Episode 8 had the biggest piece of the
It had the whole thing, yeah.
So didn't you kind of work off of that and work backwards, or how did you do it?
Well, yeah, because what originally it was for the longest time, because 8 shot fairly late in the schedule, what it was for the longest time, it was the armorer, which I stole some of from Andrew's episode and some of from mine, but it was the armorer like that would motivate the cuts that we used, and we just kept on the pre-viz. So for the longest time, it was just hammers and sparks and cartoons. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then once they shot the flashback elements, it came in and it started to evolve from there, and like what you would see and how much of it we would reveal. But it evolved. It was a long process of evolution that really like helped tell his story. It's really cool. It's fun to work on too.
There's another advantage of having the previs in that case, because normally if you had a scene like that, you just cut to some title card, flashback, and here's a flashback. But here we had stuff to at least put in that kind of at least gave the sense of what was coming. So that was nice.